I just want to say a few things. The first two poems I'm going to share are have been in the making for like the last year. I'm just going to say Philando Castile because I'm really just sick. And so the first two poems I'm going to read are about that and about me being sick. As a Black person and as a woman, we have a really special relationship to violence. Both external violence and as a Black person and as a woman, we have an interesting relationship to the violence that happens when we, menstruate, give birth, go into menopause. And I always tell people, I was like, the female body is a very violent place. And as my friends who are now beginning to give birth understand that in a completely different way, and as my mother sort of moves into, menopause, she also is understanding that in a very different way. And so the first poem doesn't explore that, but the second one does. July 6th, 2016. Knees in the gut of Alton Sterling laid flat on tar parking lot. Two white cops gun his chest. Another friend has gotten engaged, Make America Great Again printed on red caps. Someone's round-faced child learns to walk. Barack and Michelle wave at a crowd. A gun stares down at its reflection. Pools of red hydrangeas sopping the white t-shirt of Philando Castile. I sit in my basement apartment, sliding my thumb up and up over a plastic screen cover, trying to stay estranged, when I find myself texting I love you to my brother, as if to roll the miles between us into a scroll of our sin to be forgotten and burned, as if to reach out and press my fingers to his thick black neck to check his pulse. An oracle. Geronimo Yanez is acquitted of murder, and I start my period. For Philando Castile. I bled extra heavy that day, black plasma rolling thick down both thighs, my body given to warning, galvanic cramps undulating through my spine, belly, and knees, diarrhea squirting out my ass, vomit spewing from my mouth like prophecy. I laid down exhausted in a hot bath until it turned scarlet. Another egg of this land transmuting to blood. And so the next poems are more personal poems. Not that the other ones weren't, but personal in a different way. Phone sex with an older boy. The boy on the other end moans, but I stay silent, listening to the slimy slick of his hand on his penis as he imagines pressing his dick in my asshole. In the dark, I lie naked, under the blankets I've laid on the floor, reminding me of the ones my mother laid for me when I was 4, the plush white comforter splayed on the living room floor of our one-bedroom apartment. I think of moaning in reply to his heaving as I walk my fingers up and down my open thighs and wonder if this will make him love me. Auntie's funeral. Nana lays over Auntie Cat in a marble casket, and the red velvet carpet flows like a river toward the altar. Women in big black hats ripple back and forth, slow as the organ plays. I stand behind Nana, her hips slumped over the closed portion of the coffin, her face leaned in toward Auntie's, now a grayish jade. And a white man stares down at me from a portrait, his eyes pale as the moon set against an orange sun at evening, his hair blonde and uncoiled. The room is full of things I know nothing about. A vial of anointing oil, an amethyst sweat cloth slung over the bishop's shoulder, a wooden cross hung high on the wall. My fathers and uncles tried to peel Nana from the shell of their sister as a brown hand moves me from the front of the altar toward an open door. The sun is hot and high in East Palo Alto, and I climb into the family limo, sliding my hands over the black leather, wondering about death, how and when it lays down in us as baptism, how it sinks and wraps itself in our skin, fusing to bone. In the limo, my cousin asked why I didn't want to say goodbye to Auntie, and I think of the white man staring and heaven, how I'm destined for hell, how I don't know what happens to people at death, why we collapse back into the ground, why death is an ocean, light and dark, warm and cool, infinite and permanent. I don't know, I say, and she reassures me that I do not have to be afraid. Then we hear Nana scream. Every other weekend. My father takes us to this motel, to this mint green room with a small dial TV and feeds us pepperoni pizza, Doritos, and candy from the corner store where crackheads and drunks stand outside yelling and laughing with one another, flailing their bodies. It smells of smoke and booze in this place, and my father lies beside me and my brother in white briefs in the queen-size bed. My brother's mouth is open, his fat cheek pushed against the pillow, breathing heavily in the presence of our father. Outside, I hear sirens pierce and fade in the atmosphere as moonlight drips into our room, forging shadows dense in the radiance as glow bends around resting bars outside of our only window. My father wakes, throwing blankets on my brother, swinging thin legs over the edge. I watch him curl his carrot back into a crescent moon and sigh. He reaches for a cigarette and strikes his thumb against a metal wheel, igniting a small flame. His black lips grip the roll of tobacco as he cradles a blue flame toward the end of the shaft. Smoke rises like prayers. My father arcs his head in yellow beams of night, and I do not reach for him. I cannot tell him I cannot sleep, or that I'm frightened by the screaming woman downstairs. January. In January, I ride a bus 1 hour shy of the Oregon-California border, just 2 months after my 18th birthday. On the phone, I explain to my mother that I'm homeless and reflect inwardly on the moments of my birth, how she felt nothing, cold and jellied from the waist down, although I was the heaviest to press her pelvic bone, to stretch through her birth canal, how a mirror was mounted above the hospital bed when I came patiently and face up. Mom tells me to figure it out for myself, that I'm grown now. Now she can get remarried. I say okay, looking out at the elbows of the white elbows of Mount Shasta, how the trees stand like hair on the skin, and wonder if she had looked at me as I was being delivered, if she had tolerated the reflection of my half-born, half-unborn body, of my swollen face twisting between her thighs. I'll share this last one more in a minute, but I'll share this last one. Titled My Father Still Calls for 10. On an uneven road, our house sits across from a country club, tucked in a forest of tall willows and pines. Once my mother stood with another man in our driveway, laughing at me and my brother, having dropped our bikes and sprinted past old white people to catch a sparrow, reincarnated as a bulldog from the greens. It's been 14 years since my mother left my father, blistering with hot confusion and warmth, since Rocky stuck his paw in the crack of our slightly open front door and escaped, tongue slapping the side of his face, his ears peaked like wings. Since Jared and I ran through the fairways with our jade hands raised to a barrel canopy, our bellies protruding with laughter, since we settled at the yellow feet of Pacheco Pass. Yet my father still calls from Oakland, his voice itchy and hard like scabs, feeling around for a slightly open door or even a window into a life we never shared. Thank you.